You've heard of the Federal Reserve, right? Of course you have. But what is it really? It's this massive institution that has its hands on every single dollar you make and save. And yet, for over 100 years, there's been this huge, bitter fight over what it even is. So today, we're going to unpack that whole controversy, and we're starting with the big question right at the center of it all.
I mean, think about it. The Fed is always in the news. The source we're digging into today points out how a former president is constantly battling it. The Department of Justice is even looking into its spending. This isn't some dusty old history lesson, right? This is happening now. So what is this fight really all about?
Okay, so the whole controversy kicks off with a super basic question. What is the Federal Reserve? Now, most of us, if you asked us on the street, we'd probably say, oh, it's part of the government, right? You know, a government agency that's supposed to be accountable to us, the public. But the source we're looking at today tells a very different story. It claims the Fed is actually a private corporation, a secretive monopoly run by big banks, totally shielded from us. So you've got these two completely opposite stories about what this powerful institution really is.
So to get to the bottom of this claim, we have to go way back to the very beginning. And according to this source, the Fed's creation wasn't some boring piece of public policy. No, it was more like a secret origin story. They even give it this spooky name, the creature from Jekyll Island.
And check out this quote from the source. It really hammers home that this wasn't some open public discussion. It says there was no press, no public record, no voters. It was all entirely secret. They weren't writing up a bill for Congress to debate and argue over. They were designing a system that was just meant to be pushed through and accepted. And that alleged secrecy, that's a huge piece of this whole puzzle.
So here's the story we're told. Picture this: a small group of the most powerful people in the country. We're talking top bankers, influential senators. They all sneak away using fake names. They get on this private, sealed-off train car in the middle of the night and travel to this super remote private island, Jekyll Island, off the coast of Georgia. And it's there, in total secrecy, that they basically cook up the entire blueprint for America's new central bank.
And that right there gets us back to that whole creature thing. The source argues that what they built on that island was this weird hybrid. On the outside, it was designed to look like a public, government thing, so everyone would accept it. But on the inside, it was engineered to be privately owned and crucially protected from any real public oversight.
Okay, so a secret meeting on an island 100 years ago. Why should you care? Well, here's why. According to this take, the power that was created on that island has a direct line right into your bank account, right into your wallet. Let's break down exactly how.
Inflation. We all hate it, right? The price of gas, groceries, everything just keeps going up. We usually think of it as something wrong, like a bug in the system that needs to be fixed. But what if it's not a bug? The source we're looking at makes this really startling claim. For the Fed, inflation isn't an accident, it's a feature. It's a built-in, planned, and deliberate way to devalue your money. I mean, it's not even a secret. The Fed's official target, the number they're aiming for, is 2% inflation every year. So from this point of view, that means the game plan is for every dollar you have to be worth 2 cents less next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, every single year.
Let's make this super concrete with an example they use. Think back to 2011. You've got a $10 bill in your hand. Pretty straightforward. It buys you $10 worth of stuff.
Okay, now fast forward to today. That exact same $10 bill, it can only buy you what about $6.70 could have bought you back then. More than $3 of its value has just, poof, vanished, gone. That's not some abstract theory. That's a real hit to the money you've worked for and saved. So, you gotta ask, right? If your savings are losing value, where is that value going? Who's winning here? The argument in the source is that the winners are the ones standing right next to the money spigot. The big banks and financial institutions, they get the new money first. The government gets to borrow it cheap. Speculators can make their moves before the rest of us even feel the price hikes. And who's at the very end of the line? Well, according to this, it's the regular people, the wage earners and the savers.
But this whole fight over the Fed, it's not just about dollars and cents. The source frames this as something much, much bigger. It's really about a century-long tug-of-war between two totally different ideas about what America should be and what the government's job even is.
So this timeline here really lays out how the source sees that power shift happening. Back in the founding era, the idea was pretty simple. The government's job is to protect your individual rights you're born with. But then came the progressive era, and a new idea started to take over. That society is too complicated for regular people, and it needs to be managed by a special class of experts, what they call an administrative state. And the creation of the Fed in 1913, that's presented as the crown jewel of that whole philosophy, taking control of money away from the people and putting it in the hands of a few experts.
So it really boils down to two competing philosophies. You have the founder's vision. The individual is what matters most, and power should be spread out. Then you have the progressive vision. The group is the priority, and power should be centralized with experts who can plan society. The argument here is that the Federal Reserve is basically the ultimate symbol of that second worldview.
And all of that history, all of that philosophy, leads right up to the main criticisms the source has about the Fed today. And the biggest one is this. It has an insane amount of power with almost no real checks and balances to keep it in line.
So that brings up a really simple but really important question. If this one institution can literally create money out of thin air, control interest rates, and make your savings worth less, who are they accountable to? Who do they answer to? Well, according to this analysis, the answer is pretty much nobody. The source claims their books can't be fully audited by the public, and that its governors have what's called extraordinary independence once they're in the job. Now, the official reason for that is to protect the economy from politicians making short-sighted decisions, but the source we're looking at sees it very differently. They don't see that independence as a good thing. They see it as a complete lack of accountability to you and me.
All right, so let's put it all together. You've got the secret origin story, you've got this immense power over inflation in your money, and you've got this argument that there's no real accountability. When you stack all that up, it all points toward one final, really big question.
To boil down all the complicated economics, the source asks you to think about it like this. Imagine you could run a business where absolutely no one could ever look at your books. Not the government, not your investors, not the public, nobody. Do you think there's even a tiny chance that something sketchy might happen? And that's where this all leads. The final takeaway from this source isn't just, hey, we should reform the Fed, or we need more transparency. No, it goes way beyond that. It leaves us with a really radical question to chew on. Is the whole system so broken from the ground up that the only way to get a fair financial system is to just get rid of it, to abolish the Federal Reserve completely?